And our next guest, Andy Peterson, was big friends with the former Scotland and British Irish Lions prop, Tom Smith, who died after being diagnosed with colon cancer. Tom dying earlier this year. You might remember I went over to France and interviewed him a couple of years ago about his colon cancer. It was a really, really moving experience and incredible to talk to Tom. But Andy has set himself a challenge, despite the heat wave, to raise £100,000 by riding more than 1,500 miles between the four compass points of mainland Britain in a week. And we can speak to him now. Hello, Andy. Good morning.
Good morning, Eleanor. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well indeed, thank you. No, look, you contacted me about this challenge, didn't you? And said that you remembered the interview I did with Tom. Just tell us a bit about Tom and how much of an inspiration he continues to be.
Well, the first thing I'd say is it was an outstanding interview. I mean, I would ask anyone who's not listened to it to go find it in the iPlayer. And if you're not moved to tears, then, I don't understand. Tom I met him when I did a charity ride from Twickenham to Murrayfield, and we raised money for something called the Wounded Lions. And Tom, at that point, had just announced that he was diagnosed with colon cancer, bowel cancer, and he's an ambassador for Fortitude. So I was part of the Fortitude team on that ride. And I got to know Tom, and he's just an incredible guy. He's very quiet, but incredibly strong, a real depth to the man, and a huge supporter of the Fortitude charity, which I've fundraised for a number of years. And very, very encouraging, even, in the last months, that I keep going with this ride and the fundraising effort, because what we're doing with the money raised is we will fund a full-time research fellow into the genetics of hereditary bowel cancer. So this will make a massive difference to not just raising awareness of the symptoms and making sure people, are caught early and treated early, but to make sure that we can actually defeat the disease.
And you've got a particular reason, I mean, beyond your friendship with Tom, to support a charity which funds research into bowel cancer, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, bowel cancer is the biggest killer of non-smokers in the UK. It's a huge killer, and people don't talk about it or know about it because of the subject matter. It's your bum. And my father died of colon cancer, and he, like Tom, had all the symptoms, but he didn't present. He didn't do anything with them. And by the time he was diagnosed, it was stage 4 and it was too late. And I know, Ellie, yourself, that in your family you have bowel cancer, and I'll bet it's the same for many, many listeners too.
Of course, and it's close to the hearts of people in the Five Live world as well, because of our friend Deborah James, who died so recently. So with all this in mind, you are taking on a challenge which, as I said, at the best of times would be difficult. And now we're in the middle of a heat wave potentially. so yeah, I'm glad you're laughing, Andy. We might catch up with you later in the week and see how you're feeling. But just tell us what you're doing. People can hear you. You're presumably by the side of a road at the moment.
I am near, I think, Launceston in Cornwall. So I started a bit like yourselves. I started about 3:15 this morning. I've done about 80 miles so far. It's about 16 hours a day on the bike for 7 days. And that'll get me between those four compass points that you described. And I'm finishing at Ardnamurchan Point because that's where my father's from. And he's actually buried about 2 miles from the finish of the ride. So I'll pop in and say hello to him on the way past.
Yeah, that's going to be a moment, isn't it? So what are those 4 points? Because Chris, my co-presenter, was trying to remember what the 4 points were.
So in the south, you've got Lizard Point, and then in the east, you've got Ness Point in Lowestoft.
Wouldn't have got that.
Then you go up to Dunnett Head in the north.
Wouldn't
and then Ardnamurchan Point in the west.
Right, well, there we go. I've only got one.
So you've been a quarter right.
Every day's a school day in a negative sense.
So you've got Lizard Point, and then you're hopeless from that point onwards. And you're doing this unsupported, Andy, as well.
Yeah, it's just me and everything I've got in the bike here, and a lot of sunblock, I can tell you that much. My delicate Scottish complexion is going to be taking a pounding, so I'm actually keeping pretty covered up. You asked how to deal with the heat. I mean, my granny would be proud of me. I've got a vest on, which always helps. Arm warmers just to keep the sun off, and just as much sunblock as I can get on my skin with gallons of water. I'm basically stopping every time I run out of water. I'm stopping at the next garage and filling up again with water.
And just tell us a bit about yourself, Andy, because, you're not a professional athlete, are you?
far from it. When people meet me and they've heard about the challenge, they meet me and they see me, you can just see the look of disbelief, because basically, you tend to think of cyclists as looking like Chris Froome, looking like a sort of human praying mantis with stick-like limbs. And I was 15 stone when I started this. I'm a shade under 15 stone now, but too many years playing rugby and just the wrong, I would say, genetics, good farming stock. So I'm not built like an endurance athlete, but there you go. You make the most of what you've got.
And to try and keep out of the heat, actually, when originally we were going to talk to you quite a bit earlier in the programme, and you said, look, I'll have been on the road for hours by that point. So what time are you starting during the day?
So I'll start about 3:30. It's just like doing the breakfast show. I mean, but for slightly different reasons. So I'll start at 3:30, and it gives me a good run before it gets too hot, and then I can take it a little bit easier in the afternoon, and then when it gets cooler, I've got a shot in the evening as well. So aiming to get to Devizes today.
Right, okay, that's still, I'm thinking about the map in my head. That's still an awfully long way. You started off at the Lizard this morning and you're finishing at Devizes this evening.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
About 80 miles so far, and I've got another 140 to do, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
How can people support you, Andy? Because you say you're unsupported and you're stopping and getting water at petrol stations on the way. So how can people keep you going?
That's a great question. They should go. There's a website which is Fortitude, www.fortitude, that's 40tude.org.uk. And the reason that's really important is because I would ask people to go there. First of all, please donate if you can, but also just understand the symptoms of colon cancer, of bowel cancer. Know what the symptoms are. I mean, Deborah James did a phenomenal job of just getting the word bowel out into the national conversation. And it's such a killer. People should know what the symptoms are. If you go to the website, you'll see what they are. Abdominal pain, sudden loss of weight, blood in your stool, changing bowel habits. By the way, all of which I think I'm about to have in the next 7 days. But that's nothing to do with colon cancer.
No.
But go to the website, check out the symptoms. And if you think you've got a problem, go to your GP. And by the way, when you're on the website, if you could click donate, that would be fantastic. And if you want to follow my ride, there's a tracker there, so you can track me real time to see where I am.
Look, it's amazing what you're doing, Andy, and we're wishing you all the luck in the world, because this is an important cause. And thank you for highlighting the symptoms as well, because that's always something we can't do often enough. And go well, and we'll keep up with you.
Well, thank you, Ellie, because I know you've done a lot for raising the subject of bowel cancer, both with Deborah James. And I just go back to Tom's interview. Such a magnificent piece of journalism. I mean, I hope the BBC put it back up and that people can go and watch that and just understand, A, Tom, the man and the strength of the person, but B, the impact that bowel cancer has. And you've got to get it early. It's treatable. If you get it early, it's treatable.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing what those symptoms are and going with them. So, listen, I appreciate you making the time for me to talk today. Thank you very much.
No, well, we really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us as well, Andy. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Peterson, who is cycling to the four corners of the mainland, of England, Scotland and Wales.